A billionaire finds 5 lost children in the woods and offers them shelter. Upon returning home, something he sees leaves him in shock. The roar of William Parker's Range Rover engine was drowned out by the rumble of thunder. Rain pelted the windshield, turning the winding road into a grey blur. William, a 55-year-old man whose face rarely appeared in the headlines despite his billionaire fortune, gripped the steering wheel tightly. His eyes, weary after a rare charity event, struggled to make out the path ahead. Then, a flash of lightning revealed something unusual by the side of the road. William slammed on the brakes, his heart skipping a beat. Through the curtain of rain, he glimpsed small, trembling shapes. Children. "My God," he murmured, incredulous. Lowering the window, William felt the cold wind and rain lash against his face. "Hey," he called out, his voice competing with the storm. "Are you all right?" 5 pairs of wide eyes stared back at him. The oldest, a girl who looked no more than 7 years old, stepped forward. Her dark hair was plastered to her face by the rain, and she was visibly shivering. "But please," she stammered, "we got lost." William hesitated. His self-preservation instinct, honed by years of isolation, urged him to keep going. But something in those frightened eyes held him back. "Get in," he said, surprising even himself. "I'll take you somewhere safe." The children exchanged apprehensive looks. The oldest girl bit her lip, clearly torn between fear of this stranger and the danger of the storm. "I won't hurt you," William promised, his voice softer now. "I promise." After a moment that felt like an eternity, the girl nodded. She began helping the younger children into the car, her tiny hands trembling as they opened the door. William watched in the rearview mirror as they settled in. Besides the oldest girl, there were 2 boys and 2 girls, none looking older than 6. All of them were soaked, shaking, and alarmingly thin. "Are you hungry?" William asked, turning the heater up to full blast. The youngest boy, no more than 5 years old, let out a small sob at the word hungry. The oldest girl hugged him, casting a cautious glance at William. "A little," she admitted. William nodded, speeding up. His mind swirled with questions. Where had these children come from? How did they end up alone in the woods during a storm? And why, despite all his instincts for privacy, did he feel compelled to help them? The road wound through the dense forest, the car's headlights barely piercing the darkness ahead. William could feel the children's nervous stares on his back. "My name is William," he said, trying to break the tense silence. "Could you tell me your names?" There was a pause. Then the oldest girl spoke. "I'm Emily," she said quietly. "That's Michael, Sophia, Olivia, and Daniel." William nodded, memorizing their names. "It's nice to meet you. We're almost at my home. You can dry off and get something to eat there." The trees began to thin out, revealing a large clearing. In the center, illuminated by occasional flashes of lightning, stood an imposing mansion. William heard surprised gasps from the back seat. As the car climbed the long driveway, William couldn't help noticing the contrast between his world of isolated luxury and the 5 frightened, hungry children in his car. What was he doing? How would he explain this to Mary, his longtime housekeeper? The car stopped in front of the mansion. William turned off the engine and turned to face the children. 5 pale, apprehensive faces stared back at him. "Listen," he said gently. "I know you're scared, but I promise you'll be safe here. Let's go inside, get dried off, and then we can talk about how to get you home." Emily, the oldest, studied his face for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay," she said, her voice small but firm. When William opened the front door, the sound of rain was replaced by the echo of their footsteps in the grand entrance hall. The children looked around with wide eyes, clearly amazed by the place's grandeur. "Mary," William called out, "we need towels and dry clothes." While they waited, William couldn't help noticing how the children huddled together, the older ones instinctively protecting the younger. What had they gone through to develop such a bond? The sound of hurried footsteps announced Mary's arrival. She stopped abruptly upon seeing the soaked group in the foyer, her eyes widening in surprise. "Mr. Parker," she began, clearly confused. "What?" Later, Mary, William interrupted gently. First, we need to take care of these children. As Mary rushed off to fetch towels and dry clothes, William found himself studying the children's faces. Who were they? Where had they come from? And why did he feel such a strange connection to them, especially Emily? Little did William know that this chance encounter in the woods was about to set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. The answers to his questions were closer than he imagined, hidden in the depths of his own past and in the mystery surrounding these 5 lost children. The mansion's welcoming warmth contrasted sharply with the raging storm outside. William watched the children, now wrapped in soft towels, their eyes wandering curiously around the opulence of the great hall. Mary, efficient as always, had provided dry clothes and was guiding the younger children to get changed. Emily, the oldest of the group, stayed behind, her watchful eyes never leaving the younger ones. William couldn't help but notice the maturity in her gaze, a wisdom beyond her years that spoke of experiences no child should have. "Emily," William called softly, "you can get changed in that room over there. I'll be right here if you need anything." The girl nodded, hesitant. Just as she turned to follow the others, something caught William's eye, a metallic gleam, almost hidden by the soaked collar of her shirt. Time seemed to slow. William felt his heart skip a beat, then begin pounding violently. His vision narrowed, focusing only on that small object hanging around Emily's neck, a locket. Not just any locket, but one he would recognize anywhere. Small, oval, with a delicate floral pattern etched into its surface, identical to the one he had given his daughter, Sarah, on the day she disappeared, nearly 8 years ago. "Emily!" His voice came out rough, almost a whisper. "That locket!" The girl stopped, her hand instinctively going to the jewelry. Her eyes, previously tired, now flashed with alertness and caution. William struggled to maintain his composure. 1,000 questions exploded in his mind, but he knew he couldn't scare the child. Taking a deep breath, he knelt down to her eye level. "I'm sorry, I don't mean to scare you," he said, trying to smile reassuringly. "It's just that locket reminds me so much of one I knew a long time ago. Would you mind telling me about it?" Emily hesitated, her fingers gripping the locket as though she feared someone might snatch it away. "It's mine," she said, her voice low but firm. "It always has been." William nodded slowly. "I understand, it's very pretty. Do you know where it came from?" The girl frowned, a shadow passing through her eyes. "No, not really. It's the only thing I've had since forever." William's heart ached at the confusion and barely disguised sadness in her voice. He desperately wanted to press for more information, to find out how this locket, Sarah's locket, had ended up with Emily. But the fear in the girl's eyes stopped him. "That's all right," he said gently. "It's a very special piece. I'm glad you have it." Emily relaxed slightly, though her eyes still studied William warily. Can I go get changed now?" William nodded, standing up. "Of course. Go ahead." As he watched Emily disappear into the next room, William felt as though the ground had been pulled out from under his feet. His hands trembled, and he had to lean on a nearby chair for support. Sarah's locket, here, after all these years, hanging around the neck of a lost girl he had found by chance in a storm. What did it mean? Could Emily be? No. Impossible. Sarah had been 19 when she disappeared. Emily couldn't be older than 7 or 8. But then, how? "Mr. Parker!" Mary's voice pulled him out of his turbulent thoughts. "Are you all right?" William turned to his trusted housekeeper, seeing the concern in her eyes. For a moment, he considered sharing his shocking discovery. But no, not yet. Not until he understood more. "Yes, Mary," he managed. "Just tired. It's been quite a night." Mary nodded, though her look said she wasn't fully convinced. "The children are changing. Should I prepare something for them to eat?" "Yes, please," William replied, grateful for the distraction. "Something light and warm. And maybe some hot chocolate." A small smile appeared on Mary's face. "Of course, sir, I'll be right back." As Mary left, William found himself walking over to the large window overlooking the mansion's gardens. The storm still raged outside, occasional lightning illuminating the darkness. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass, trying to organize his thoughts. The locket was unmistakable. He'd had it custom-made, a special gift for Sarah on her 18th birthday. The last time he saw it was on the day she left home, promising to return soon. A promise she never fulfilled. Years of searches, private investigations, public appeals, all in vain. Sarah had vanished without a trace, taking not just the locket but also William's heart with her. And now, by some cruel twist of fate, the locket reappeared, brought by a lost child on a stormy night. The sound of soft footsteps made him turn. Emily was back, now wearing dry clothes that were slightly too big for her. The locket gleamed against the pale fabric of her new shirt, almost as though mocking him. "Sir?" she asked hesitantly. "Where are the others?" William forced a smile. "They should be here soon. Mary is making something for you to eat. You must be hungry." As if to confirm his words, Emily's stomach rumbled audibly. The girl blushed a little, and for the first time, William saw a small, shy smile light up her face. At that moment, seeing the vulnerability and innocence in her eyes, William made a decision. He would uncover the truth behind this locket and these lost children. And in the process, maybe he would finally discover what happened to his beloved Sarah. But for now, these children needed care, safety, a place to call home, at least temporarily. And William was determined to provide that for them. "Come on," he said gently, extending a hand toward Emily. "Let's go find the others and get something to eat. After that, we can talk more if you want." Emily looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment before, hesitantly, placing her small hand in his. The touch was as light as a feather, but for William, it carried the weight of unspoken promises and unsolved mysteries. As he led Emily toward the kitchen, where the comforting aromas of Mary's cooking were beginning to fill the air, William couldn't help feeling that his life was about to change drastically. The locket was only the beginning. What other secrets would these lost children bring to light, and would he be prepared for the truths they might reveal? With a final glance at the locket gleaming around Emily's neck, William took a deep breath and stepped into the kitchen, ready to face whatever fate had in store for him. The next morning dawned clear and fresh, a striking contrast to the previous night's storm. William Parker was in his study, the first rays of sunlight filtering through tall windows and illuminating the stack of papers on his desk. He had barely slept, his mind swirling with questions about the 5 children who now slept in luxurious guest rooms upstairs. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called, knowing it would be Mary. The housekeeper entered, carrying a tray with coffee and toast. Her usually serene face was marked with lines of concern. "Good morning, Mr. Parker," she said, placing the tray on the desk. "The children are still sleeping. I imagine they're exhausted after everything." William nodded, picking up the cup of coffee. "Thank you, Mary. How did they seem last night after I went to bed?" Mary hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Frightened, sir? Confused?" The oldest, Emily, stayed awake for a while, watching over the others. I had to reassure her several times that they were safe before she finally fell asleep. William frowned, recalling the wary look in Emily's eyes. "Did they say anything about where they came from, about their parents?" "Not much, sir," Mary replied, her voice dropping. "They only mentioned an orphanage, but—" She paused, clearly uncomfortable. "But what, Mary?" William prompted gently. "Sir, I don't think it's an ordinary orphanage," Mary finally said. "The way the children react, their fear, I'm afraid they may have gone through terrible things." William felt a knot forming in his stomach. The idea of children suffering was unbearable, especially since Sarah's disappearance. "I see," he said slowly. "Mary, I need you to do something for me. Discreetly, of course." "Anything, sir." "Research orphanages in the area. Any that might have rumors, so to speak, stories of mistreatment, poor conditions, anything out of the ordinary." Mary nodded, understanding the seriousness of the request. "I'll start right away, sir. And what about the children? What should we do with them in the meantime?" William looked out the window, gazing at the well-tended gardens on his property. For now, let's let them rest, adjust. Perhaps we can show them what it's like to have a real home, even if it's temporary. Mary seemed to hesitate again. Mr. Parker, I know your heart is in the right place, but taking in unknown children, possibly runaways, this could bring trouble. William turned to face her, his eyes resolute. I understand your concern, Mary, but I can't just send them away. Not until we fully understand their situation, and especially not until I learn more about that locket. The mention of the locket made Mary straighten up. She knew how much that piece of jewelry meant to her employer, how deeply it was tied to the painful memory of Sarah. As you wish, sir. I'll do what I can to help. As the morning progressed, the sound of little footsteps and hushed voices began to echo through the corridors of the mansion. William, who had moved to the living room to work on some documents, looked up when he heard the children approaching. Emily was the first to appear in the doorway, her gaze scanning the room before letting the others enter. William couldn't help but notice how the locket glinted in the morning light. Good morning, he said, smiling gently. I hope you all slept well. The children murmured shy, good morning in response, their wide eyes still taking in the luxury around them. Mary prepared breakfast for you in the dining room, William continued. Why not have something to eat? Afterwards, if you'd like, I can show you the gardens. The youngest, Daniel, gave a small jump of excitement. Is there a garden with swings? William chuckled softly. Actually, there's an entire playground. But first, let's eat, all right? As the children made their way to the dining room, William couldn't help noticing how they seemed slightly more relaxed than the night before. The smell of pancakes and the promise of play appeared to have momentarily driven away their fears. During breakfast, William observed their interactions. Emily, ever vigilant, made sure everyone ate. Michael, the second oldest, seemed particularly protective of Sophia, the shyest of the group. Olivia, on the other hand, chatted excitedly about the elegant dishes and cutlery, clearly fascinated by the luxury. It was Olivia who finally broke the ice with William. Sir, she asked between bites of pancake, are you kind of like a king? William nearly choked on his coffee, surprised by the innocent question. No, I'm not a king, he replied, smiling softly. I'm just someone who's been very lucky in life. But you have a castle, Daniel insisted, his eyes shining with admiration. It's just a big house, William explained gently. But I admit it sometimes feels too big just for me. Emily, who had remained silent, finally spoke. Why do you live alone in such a big place? The question caught William off guard. For a moment, the familiar pain of losing Sarah hit him. Well, he began slowly, it wasn't always like this. But sometimes life takes us down unexpected paths. Something in William's tone seemed to touch Emily. For the first time, he saw a flicker of empathy in her guarded eyes. After breakfast, as promised, William took the children out to explore the gardens. Seeing their faces light up as they ran across the manicured lawn, played on the swings, and explored the hedge maze was a bittersweet experience for William. On one hand, his heart warmed at their happiness. On the other, he couldn't stop thinking about Sarah and the games she would never again play in these gardens. While the children played, Mary approached William. Sir, she said quietly, I started the research you asked for. There are troubling rumors about an orphanage about 30 miles from here. William nodded gravely. Keep investigating, Mary. We need to know more. As the day wore on, William watched the children growing more comfortable in the mansion. He saw how their eyes lit up at discovering the library filled with books, how they laughed while playing in the indoor pool, how they marveled at the spacious bedrooms they now occupied. But beneath the momentary joy, William could still see the scars of their past. In quiet moments, he caught sight of lost expressions, involuntary tremors, protective hugs among the siblings. And always, his eyes were drawn to the locket around Emily's neck. The mystery behind that piece of jewelry and these 5 lost children consumed his thoughts. That night, after tucking the children into bed, William found himself once again in his study, a photo of Sarah in his hands. What happened to you, my dear? He whispered to the smiling image. And how are these children connected to you? Outside, the moon shone over the mansion's silent gardens, illuminating a new chapter in William Parker's life, a chapter filled with mysteries, challenges, and perhaps a chance for redemption. The light from William Parker's laptop illuminated his tense face as he typed an encrypted email. It was nearly midnight, and the mansion's silence was broken only by the faint ticking of the antique clock in the study. "Dear Mr. Reeves," William wrote, "I need your services again. The situation is delicate and requires utmost discretion." James Reeves was a private investigator William had hired years ago when Sarah disappeared. Now, with 5 mysterious children under his roof and a familiar locket around one child's neck, William knew he needed professional help once more. After detailing what he knew about the children and the possible orphanage, William hesitated before mentioning the locket. Finally, he decided to include this crucial information. If there was a connection to Sarah, Reeves had to know. As soon as he hit send, William heard a soft creak from the hallway. Rising silently, he opened the study door to find Emily standing there, her eyes wide with surprise at being caught. "Emily?" William asked quietly. "Is everything all right?" "Can't you sleep?" The girl bit her lip, clearly debating whether to trust him. I had a nightmare," she finally admitted, her voice almost a whisper. William's heart tightened. "Do you want to talk about it?" Emily shook her head no, but made no move to return to her room. William recognized the look in her eyes, the fear of being alone, but also the fear of asking for help. "How about some hot chocolate?" he offered. "It always helps me when I can't sleep." A small smile appeared on Emily's face, and she nodded timidly. In the kitchen, while William prepared the drinks, Emily sat at the central island, her feet swinging without reaching the floor. The locket gleamed softly under the dim light. "Emily," William began carefully, placing a steaming mug in front of her, "I know you and the other children went through a lot. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm here to listen." The girl took a sip of her hot chocolate, her eyes fixed on the drink. For a long moment, William thought she wouldn't answer. Then, in a low, trembling voice, she began to speak. "The orphanage. It wasn't a good place," Emily said, her voice quavering. "There wasn't enough food. The beds were hard and cold. And the adults." She shuddered visibly. William felt a surge of anger well up inside him, but he kept his voice calm. "Did the adults hurt you?" Emily didn't answer directly, but her silence spoke volumes. "We decided to run away," she continued. "I promised I'd take care of the younger ones. We walked for days until you found us." William fought the urge to hug her, knowing the sudden contact might scare her. Instead, he gently placed his hand over hers. "You were very brave, Emily, and you did a great job looking after the others." Emily looked at him, tears glinting in her eyes. "So you won't send us back, will you?" "Never," William promised firmly. "You're safe here." The next morning, while the children had breakfast under Mary's attentive care, William received Reeves's reply. The investigator agreed to take the case and would start immediately. Over the following days, William watched as the children slowly began to open up. Daniel, the youngest, started following him around like a shadow, fascinated by the gadgets and trinkets in his study. Sophia, once so shy, was caught several times humming softly while exploring the gardens. Michael showed a surprising talent for chess, spending hours playing against a program on William's tablet. Olivia, on the other hand, seemed determined to learn all about the mansion and its luxuries. "Mr. William," she asked one day, "why do you have so many different spoons at the dinner table?" William laughed, patiently explaining about salad forks, dessert spoons, and soup spoons. Her enthusiasm for learning was contagious, reminding him painfully of Sarah's insatiable curiosity. A week into the investigation, Reeves sent his first detailed report. William read it in his study, his heart racing with each paragraph. The orphanage, located in a remote area, had a grim reputation among local residents. There were rumors of neglect, lack of resources, and more disturbingly, repeated allegations of abuse that had been swept under the rug. Even more intriguing, Reeves discovered that the orphanage's official records were inconsistent. Children appeared and disappeared from the files without explanation. Adoptions were processed suspiciously fast, often for foreign couples who were never seen in the area again. As for the specific 5 children, Reeves found very little information. It was as if they had appeared at the orphanage out of nowhere, with no birth records or known relatives. Most disturbing, however, was a note at the end of the report. Mr. Parker, I found an interesting cross-reference. About 7 years ago, a young woman matching your daughter's description was seen in the nearby town. I'm investigating further. William felt the blood run cold in his veins. Sarah, near that terrible place. Could there be a connection? His thoughts were interrupted by a cry from the garden. Rushing to the window, he saw Emily comforting a tearful Sophia, who had apparently fallen off the swing. Watching Emily gently tend to Sophia's scraped knee, William felt a mixture of emotions: compassion for what these children had endured, anger at those responsible for their suffering, and a growing determination to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The locket around Emily's neck glinted in the afternoon sun, a constant reminder of the mystery that bound them together. William knew he was only scratching the surface of something much bigger and potentially more dangerous. But seeing Sophia's hesitant smile as Emily helped her to her feet, William realized he couldn't turn back. These children needed him, and he would not abandon them. With a determined sigh, William turned back to his laptop. There was much work to be done, many questions to be answered, and he was just getting started. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across William Parker's study when his phone vibrated with a message from Reeves. With his heart pounding, he opened the attached file, his eyes quickly scanning the lines of text. "Mr. Parker," began the message, "I've discovered something you need to see immediately. 7 years ago, a young woman matching Sarah's description was seen at a private clinic a few miles from the orphanage. The records indicate she was pregnant and in a high-risk situation." William felt the air leave his lungs. Sarah, pregnant. The timeline matched perfectly with her disappearance. But why would she have gone to a private clinic instead of seeking help at home? Before he could fully process this information, a soft knock on the door broke through his thoughts. It was Mary, her expression a mixture of worry and guilt. "Mr. Parker," she began hesitantly, "there's something I need to tell you, something I've kept to myself for a long time, and I'm afraid I can't keep it secret anymore." William gestured for her to sit, his mind still spinning with Reeves's revelations. "What is it, Mary?" The housekeeper wrung her hands in her lap, her eyes fixed on the floor. "It's about Sarah, sir, about the day she disappeared." William leaned forward, his entire attention on Mary. "Go on." "That morning, before Sarah left, I found her crying in the bathroom," Mary confessed. She had a positive pregnancy test in her hands." William's world seemed to tilt. "Why didn't you tell me this?" Mary wiped away a tear. "She begged me not to, sir. She said she needed time to think, to decide what to do. I should have insisted she talk to you, but—" "But what, Mary?" William pressed, his voice trembling. "She mentioned a man," Mary continued. "Someone she met on one of her volunteer trips. She said he wasn't a good person, that she was afraid of him. I should have realized something was wrong, should have stopped her from leaving that day." William stood abruptly, pacing over to the window. Outside, he could see Emily playing with the other children. The locket on her neck glittered in the setting sun. "Mary," he said slowly, do you think it's possible that Emily is the granddaughter we never knew we had?" Mary finished, following his gaze. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with possibilities and unanswered questions. "The ages match," William murmured, more to himself than to Mary, "and the locket. But why would Sarah never come back? Why leave her own daughter in an orphanage?" Mary moved closer, placing a comforting hand on William's shoulder. "Maybe she had no choice, sir, if she really feared that man." William nodded slowly, the pieces of the puzzle starting to fit together in his mind. Sarah's sudden disappearance, the suspect orphanage, the children with no records, the locket. "We need to be sure," he finally said, his voice steady with renewed determination. "Reeves mentioned a private clinic. Maybe we can find more answers there." At that moment, a child's laughter rang out from the garden. William and Mary looked outside once more, seeing Emily pushing Daniel on the swing, a rare smile lighting up her face. "Look at her, Mary," William whispered. "She has Sarah's eyes, the same smile, and the same gentle heart," Mary added softly. "The way she cares for others, it's exactly how Sarah used to be." William felt a lump in his throat. The possibility that Emily might be his granddaughter, that he had a piece of Sarah back in his life, was both thrilling and terrifying. "What do we do now, sir?" Mary asked. William took a deep breath, straightening his shoulders. "We continue investigating, but more importantly, we keep protecting these children. If Emily really is my granddaughter, then the others are practically family as well." Mary nodded, a small smile on her lips. "They've already brought so much life back into this house, and haven't they?" William silently agreed. In the few days since the children's arrival, the once silent mansion had filled with laughter, quick footsteps, and the vibrant energy of youth. It was as if a piece of the past had returned, bringing with it a promise of the future. "Mary," William said finally, "we need to be careful. If my suspicions are correct, and if the man Sarah feared is still out there." "I understand, sir," Mary replied gravely. "I'll double security. No one will enter or leave this property without our knowledge." William nodded, grateful for her competence and loyalty. "And for now, we say nothing to the children, especially Emily. Not until we're certain." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the garden, William watched Emily gather the other children to head inside. The locket around her neck flashed one last time before fading into the shadows. William Parker knew he stood on the brink of discoveries that could change everything. The past, so long buried, was resurfacing, bringing with it promises and dangers. But looking at the children who now called his home their refuge, he knew he would face any challenge to protect them. With one last look at the now empty garden, William turned back to his computer. There was work to be done, mysteries to unravel, and perhaps, just perhaps, a family to be reunited. The next morning began like any other at the Parker mansion. The aroma of coffee and freshly made toast filled the air, mingling with the sound of children's laughter coming from the dining room. William smiled to himself, straightening his tie as he descended the stairs. Over the past few weeks, he had grown used to, and even looked forward to, these moments of domestic normality. But the morning's tranquility was abruptly cut short by the shrill sound of the doorbell. William frowned, exchanging a worried glance with Mary, who had just emerged from the kitchen. "Are we expecting anyone?" he asked, knowing full well they weren't. Mary shook her head, her expression mirroring William's apprehension. "No, sir. Shall I answer?" "I will," William replied, his hand instinctively going to the pocket where he kept his phone, ready to call security if needed. Opening the door, William was met by a middle-aged woman with graying hair pulled into a tight bun and piercing eyes behind thin-framed glasses. Her attire, a sober grey suit, exuded an air of authority. "Mr. Parker," the woman inquired, her voice sharp as ice. "I'm Agatha Blackwood, a social worker from the St. Clair Orphanage. I'm here regarding 5 children who disappeared from our institution a few weeks ago." William's heart skipped a beat, but years of tough negotiations helped him maintain a neutral expression. "I see. Please, come in, Ms. Blackwood. We can discuss this in my study." As he led the visitor down the hall, William noticed the sudden silence that had descended on the house. The children's laughter had ceased, replaced by a tense, oppressive hush. In the study, William gestured for Agatha to sit, positioning himself strategically between her and the door. "So, Mrs. Blackwood, what exactly brings you here?" Agatha adjusted her glasses, her eyes never leaving William's face. "As I mentioned, Mr. Parker, 5 of our children have gone missing. We have reason to believe they might be here. I'd like to see them immediately." "And what reason is that?" William asked calmly, though his pulse was racing. "Confidential information," Agatha replied curtly. "The important thing is that these children must return to the orphanage. That's standard procedure." William leaned forward, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Ms. Blackwood, before we proceed, I'd like to see official identification and documentation related to these children." A flicker of irritation crossed Agatha's face, but she quickly masked it, rummaging in her briefcase. "Of course, here's my identification. As for the children's files, unfortunately, I don't have them with me at the moment." Their disappearance was sudden. William examined her credentials, noting details that seemed out of place. His years of business dealings had trained him to spot forgeries, and something about this document wasn't right. "I see," he said, handing back the identification. "Well, as you can imagine, Ms. Blackwood, the safety and well-being of these children is my top priority. I can't simply hand them over without proper documentation and verification." Agatha stood abruptly, her composure beginning to crack. "Mr. Parker, this is absurd. Those children are the state's responsibility. You have no authority to keep them here." At that moment, a small sound caught William's attention. Turning slightly, he saw Emily standing at the study's threshold, her wide eyes full of fear, fixed on Agatha. Agatha's reaction was immediate and revealing. Her face hardened, a mixture of anger and something darker flashing in her eyes. "Emily," she said, her voice falsely sweet, "it's time to come home, dear." Emily visibly trembled, stepping back. William moved instinctively, placing himself between the child and Agatha. "I think it's time for you to go, Mrs. Blackwood," he said firmly. "This isn't over, Mr. Parker," Agatha hissed, gathering her briefcase. "I'll be back with the proper authorities." As William escorted her to the door, he spotted the other children hiding behind Mary in the living room, their faces pale with fear. Once Agatha was gone, William locked the door and turned to the children. Emily ran to him, clinging to his leg. "Don't let her take us back," she pleaded, tears in her eyes. Kneeling, William gently hugged Emily. "I won't, I promise. You're safe here." Straightening up, he addressed Mary. "Call the lawyer and Reeves. We need to act fast." In the minutes that followed, the mansion turned into a fortress. William activated the advanced security system while Mary comforted the children. In his study, William typed furiously on his computer, researching everything he could about St. Clair Orphanage and Agatha Blackwood. What he found only increased his concern. There were no official records of any Agatha Blackwood employed at any orphanage in the area. The phone rang and William answered quickly upon seeing Reeves's number. "What did you find?" The investigator's voice was grave. "Mr. Parker, this woman, Agatha Blackwood, isn't who she claims to be. I've traced connections to a group suspected of child trafficking. The orphanage is just a front." William felt a chill run down his spine. His suspicions were being confirmed, and the situation was worse than he imagined. "Reeves, I need you to find out everything you can about this group and tighten security around the property. We can't take any risks." Hanging up the phone, William looked out the window, seeing the children now gathered in the garden, Mary keeping watch beside them. Emily's locket shone in the sunlight, a constant reminder of the mystery that bound them together. William knew the battle was just beginning, but looking at those innocent children, he swore he would do anything to protect them. No matter the cost, no matter what secrets he had to unearth, he would face whatever it took to keep his new family safe. William's study was bathed in the twilight glow when his phone buzzed with another encrypted message from Reeves. Heart hammering, he opened the attached file, his eyes scanning the text. "Mr. Parker," the message began, "I've found concrete evidence that Sarah was in the town near the orphanage about 7 years ago. A small hotel's records show she stayed there for almost a month under an assumed name. More importantly, I got hold of a security photo." William opened the attached image with trembling hands. There she was, his Sarah, walking through the hotel's lobby. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner, but it was unmistakably her. And, William noticed with a pang, she was visibly pregnant. As he tried to process this, a gentle knock came at the door. It was Mary, carrying a tray with tea. "Any news, sir?" she asked, setting the tray on the desk. William nodded slowly, turning his laptop screen so Mary could see the photo. The housekeeper gasped, hand going to her mouth. "Oh, Sarah," she murmured. "What happened to you, dear?" "Reeves says she stayed in that town for almost a month," William explained, his voice rough with emotion. "Mary, she was pregnant. Emily, she must be my granddaughter." Mary nodded, tears in her eyes. "I always suspected, sir, the way she acts, those eyes. They're Sarah's eyes." William was about to respond when his phone rang again. It was Reeves. "Mr. Parker," the investigator's urgent voice crackled through. "I've just had a very interesting conversation with a former employee of the orphanage. She remembers Sarah." William sat up straight, his heart pounding. "What did she say?" "According to this woman, a young mother arrived at the orphanage about 7 years ago, desperate and terrified. She'd just given birth and insisted she couldn't keep the baby. She said someone was after her, that it was too dangerous." William felt the blood run cold in his veins. "Did she mention who was after Sarah?" There was a pause on the other end. "Not specifically, sir. But she said the young mother mentioned a powerful, dangerous man, someone with connections who would make her disappear if he found her." The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to form a grim picture in William's mind. "Anything else, Reeves?" "Yes, sir. The ex-employee mentioned that in the days that followed, she saw the mother several times outside the orphanage, watching from a distance. She seemed to be in mourning, crying silently as she watched the children play." William closed his eyes, feeling a sharp pain in his chest as he imagined Sarah, alone and broken-hearted, watching her child from afar. "Thank you, Reeves. Keep investigating. We need to know more about this man Sarah feared." Hanging up, William turned to Mary, who had heard the entire conversation in silence. "Mary," he said slowly, "do you recall Sarah mentioning anyone? Someone who might be dangerous?" The housekeeper frowned in thought. "Not specifically, sir. But in the months before she disappeared, Sarah was less different, more reserved, sometimes scared. There were a few strange phone calls too." "What kind of calls?" William prompted. "Well, sometimes the phone would ring late at night. When I answered, the person hung up immediately. Sarah would always get agitated after these calls." William nodded grimly. "It seems Sarah got involved with someone dangerous, someone so threatening she felt forced to abandon everything, even her own child." At that moment, a joyful shout came from the garden. Peeking out the window, they saw Emily pushing Daniel on the swing, both giggling without a care. "What do we do now, sir?" Mary asked softly. William watched the children for a long moment before replying, "We keep protecting them, Mary, and we find out the truth. Sarah may have been forced to leave Emily, but now we have a chance to fix that." He rose, walking to the window. "But we must be cautious. If the man Sarah feared is still out there, and if he learns about Emily—" "He won't lay a finger on her," Mary said firmly, "nor on any of the children." William nodded, grateful for Mary's unwavering loyalty. "We'll increase security, and perhaps we should consider a temporary move. Somewhere safer, away from here." While they discussed the next steps, William couldn't stop thinking about Sarah. Where was she now? Was she safe? And would they ever be a family again? Emily's laughter echoed once more through the garden, bringing a sad smile to William's face. His granddaughter was right there, so close, yet still unaware of her true origins. No matter what happened, William vowed to do everything in his power to keep Emily and the other children safe. And maybe, just maybe, this journey would lead him back to Sarah. With that hope in mind, William began planning his next move, determined to unearth the secrets of the past and protect his newly discovered family's future. The grandfather clock on the wall of William Parker's study showed nearly midnight when he finally made up his mind. After hours of sifting through the new information, he knew it was time to confront the past head-on. With a heavy sigh, he pressed the intercom button. "Mary, could you come to my study, please?" "I know it's late, but it's important." Minutes later, the housekeeper entered, her face lined with worry and fatigue. "Yes, Mr. Parker." William motioned for her to sit. The soft lamplight cast long shadows across the room, creating an almost confessional atmosphere. "Mary," he began, his voice calm but resolute, "we've worked together for over 3 decades. You saw Sarah grow up. You were here the day she disappeared." He paused, studying the housekeeper's face. "I need you to tell me everything you know about that day. Everything, without omissions." Mary visibly paled, her hands clenching in her lap. For a long moment, only the ticking of the clock broke the tense silence. "I see," she started, her voice trembling slightly. "I helped her, sir. I helped Sarah run away." Her words hit William like a punch to the gut. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on Mary. "Helped her? Why?" Mary swallowed hard, tears glistening in her eyes. She was so scared, Mr. Parker. I'd never seen her like that before. "She came to me in the early morning, begging for help. She said she had to leave, that it was too dangerous to stay." "Dangerous?" William echoed, his mind spinning. What could be so dangerous that she'd leave her own home, her family? "A man," Mary answered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Someone she met during one of her volunteer trips. At first, she spoke of him admiringly, said he was powerful, influential, making a difference in the world." William felt a knot tighten in his stomach. But something changed. Mary nodded sadly. Sarah grew anxious, always glancing over her shoulder. She'd get strange calls, sometimes in the middle of the night, and then... She paused, taking a deep breath. Then she found out she was pregnant. The revelation, though already suspected, hit William with full force. He stood abruptly, striding to the window. Outside, the full moon bathed the gardens in silvery light, creating a surreal scene. "Why didn't you tell me, Mary?" he asked, his voice laced with hurt and betrayal. "I could have helped, could have protected her." "She made me promise, sir," Mary replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "Said the less you knew, the safer you'd be. She wanted to protect you too." William turned around, facing Mary with a mix of disbelief and anger. "Protect me. I'm her father, Mary. It was my duty to protect her, not the other way around." "I know, sir," Mary said softly, tears now flowing freely down her face. "And I regret it every day that I didn't tell you. But at the time, Sarah was so certain it was the only way." William sat back down, feeling the weight of years of guilt and regret. "What else do you know, Mary?" "Where did she go?" Mary shook her head. She didn't say much, for safety, only that she was going far away to have the baby in peace. She mentioned a small town, a place where no one knew her. "And the baby's father," William pressed. "What do you know about him?" Mary hesitated. "Not much, sir. Sarah never mentioned his name. Only that he was dangerous, with powerful connections. She feared he might do something terrible if he found out about the baby." William felt a wave of anger surge through him. The idea of his daughter alone, frightened, pregnant, fleeing from a dangerous man, was almost too much to bear. "Mary," he said, his voice now firm with determination, "I need every detail you remember, any small clue that could help us find Sarah." For the next few minutes, Mary recounted everything she could recall, fragments of overheard conversations, details about the mysterious phone calls, even vague descriptions Sarah had given of the man. When she finished, William stood again, walking to the large map on the wall of his study. His eyes swept over the cities and states, his mind working furiously. "I'm going to intensify the search," he declared. "Double Reeves's resources, hire more investigators. I want a full sweep of that town near the orphanage, then a national search." Turning to Mary, his eyes shone with a mix of determination and renewed hope. "We'll find her, Mary. We'll bring Sarah home." The housekeeper nodded, a small smile of relief on her lips. "And what about the children, sir, Emily and the others?" "We'll move them temporarily," William answered. "I have an isolated property in the countryside. It'll be safer for them while we sort this out. And when we find Sarah..." His voice cracked momentarily. "When we find her, Emily will finally meet her mother." Mary rose, wiping her remaining tears away. "I'm sorry I didn't say anything before, Mr. Parker. I hope you can forgive me one day." William approached, placing a gentle hand on Mary's shoulder. "There's nothing to forgive, Mary. You did what you thought was best to protect Sarah. Now, let's work together to bring her back." As Mary left the study, William turned his attention back to the photo of Sarah on his desk. The radiant smile of his daughter now seemed laden with unspoken fears. "I'll find you, Sarah," he murmured, lightly touching the image. "No matter how long it takes, no matter what it costs, I'll bring you home." With a fresh determination burning in his chest, William picked up the phone. It was time to mobilize every resource, every influence he had. The search for Sarah was about to enter a new phase, more intense and far-reaching than ever before. And somewhere out there, perhaps his daughter would finally sense it was safe to come home. Dawn had barely broken when William Parker entered his study, a cup of strong coffee in one hand and a folder full of documents in the other. Sleepless nights and days of intense investigation had left visible marks on his face, but his eyes shone with unshakable resolve. Sitting at his desk, William opened the folder, spreading out photos, reports, and notes in front of him. At the center of it all were two images that stood out: a recent photo of Emily smiling in the mansion's garden, and an old photo of Sarah at the same age. The resemblance was undeniable. The same bright eyes, the same shy smile, even the way they tilted their heads slightly when they laughed. William felt his heart tighten. How had he not seen it before? A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Mary, carrying more coffee and some papers. "Good morning, Mr. Parker," she said, placing the tray on the table. "Mr. Reeves called. He says he has urgent news and will be here in an hour." William nodded, thanking her. While he waited, he continued studying the documents, his mind trying to connect the scattered pieces of information. Exactly an hour later, James Reeves walked into the study, his normally impassive face showing signs of agitation. "Mr. Parker," he began without preamble, "we found something in the orphanage files. Something you need to see." Reeves set a folder on the desk, opening it to reveal a series of old, worn documents. "These are admission records from 7 years ago. Look at the date and the description." William leaned in, his eyes scanning the document. His breath caught in his throat as he read, "May 14, 2017, female infant, approximately 2 weeks old. Left at the orphanage door with only a silver locket. No other identification provided. The date, only 2 weeks after Sarah disappeared, and the locket." "My God," William murmured, his voice trembling. "It's her. It's Emily." Reeves nodded gravely. "There's more, Mr. Parker. We found records of a young woman staying at a nearby hotel during that same period. The name was Fakers, but the description—" "Sarah," William completed, his heart racing. "Exactly," Reeves confirmed. "And there's something else. During her stay, this woman made several visits to a local clinic. Her clinic known for, well, helping women in delicate situations." William felt a rush of conflicting emotions, relief at finally having answers, pain at imagining what Sarah must have gone through, and a growing anger toward the man who put her in that situation. "What else have you uncovered about that man?" William asked, his voice tight. Reeves hesitated a moment. "We don't have a name yet, but we've got some information. Apparently, he was prominent in international philanthropic circles. There were rumors he used his connections for less than noble purposes." William stood abruptly, walking to the window. Outside, he could see Emily playing with the other children in the garden, her laughter echoing through the air. "She's my granddaughter," he said softly, more to himself than to Reeves. "All this time, she's been so close." Reeves stepped forward, his tone gentler now. "Mr. Parker, I know this is a lot to process, but we need to discuss our next steps, especially considering potential threats." William turned, his face set in determination. "First, I want absolute confirmation. A DNA test." "Already arranged," Reeves replied. "I discreetly collected a sample from Emily and sent it to a trusted lab. We'll have the results in a few days." William nodded, grateful for the investigator's efficiency. "What about Sarah? Any sign of her?" Reeves shook his head. "Nothing concrete yet, but with this new information, we can expand the search. We'll focus on areas where she might have hidden, far from large cities." William returned to his desk, his gaze falling again on the photos of Emily and Sarah. She must have stayed nearby, Reeves, watching Emily from a distance, making sure she was safe. "It's possible," Reeves agreed. "But we also have to consider she might have left entirely, afraid of being found." William felt a lump in his throat. The thought of Sarah alone, possibly still in fear, was almost unbearable. "There's one more thing, Mr. Parker," Reeves said, his voice cautious. We found records of a man visiting the orphanage several times in the months after Emily arrived. He never gave his real name, but the description matches what we know about the man Sarah feared. William felt a shiver run down his spine. You think he was looking for them? Reeves nodded gravely. It's possible, which makes it even more crucial that we tread carefully with our next moves. William stood again, going to the large map on the wall. His eyes swept across states, imagining where Sarah could be. We need to double our efforts, he declared. I want search teams in every state, check hospital records, clinics, women's shelters, anywhere Sarah might have sought help. Reeves jotted down notes quickly. And the children. William turned, his resolve clear. I'll take them to my countryside property tomorrow. It's isolated, secure. In the meantime, I want enhanced security here. No one enters or leaves without verification. After Reeves left, William called for Mary. The housekeeper entered, noting the changed atmosphere in the study immediately. Mary, William began, his voice gentle. Emily is my granddaughter. Mary's eyes widened, but she didn't look entirely surprised. Oh, Mr. Parker, she said, her voice shaking. I suspected she's so much like Sarah. William nodded, feeling tears welling up in his own eyes. We need to protect her, Mary. Her and the other children. There are dangerous people who might be looking for them. Mary straightened her shoulders, her expression determined. I'll do whatever it takes, sir. Those children are family now. William gave a grateful smile. Get them ready for a trip tomorrow. Tell them it's a holiday in the countryside. I don't want to scare them. As Mary left to carry out his orders, William returned his gaze to Sarah's photo. I'm going to find you, dear, he murmured, and I'll bring you back home, to your daughter, to our family. With a new determination burning in his chest, William Parker braced himself for the battle ahead. A battle to reunite his family, protect his newly discovered granddaughter, and finally unravel the secrets that had haunted his life for so long. William Parker's private jet cut through the night sky, its silvery silhouette reflecting the moonlight. Inside the luxurious cabin, William studied a series of documents spread across the table before him, his face a mask of intense concentration. Next to him, James Reeves was methodically organizing a digital map, marking points of interest in various cities. Mr. Parker, he began, pointing to a specific location, our first stop is Denver. We have a report of a woman matching Sarah's description, working in a rehabilitation clinic about 3 years ago. William nodded, his tired eyes still filled with determination. How long until we arrive? About 2 hours, sir. Silence fell over the cabin, broken only by the soft hum of the engines. William couldn't help his thoughts drifting to Emily and the other children, now safe at the countryside estate, under Mary's watchful care. Discovering that Emily was his granddaughter had only fueled his determination to find Sarah, to finally piece his family back together. As the plane began its descent into Denver, William felt a mixture of anxiety and hope swelling in his chest. Each new city, each lead, might be the one to bring him to Sarah. The next 48 hours were a frantic race through 3 states. In Denver, the rehab clinic lead turned into a dead end. The woman in question shared only a passing resemblance to Sarah. Undeterred, the team moved on to Seattle, where rumors circulated about a young mother living under a false name. William and Reeves scoured neighborhoods, spoke to locals, and reviewed hospital and school records. But once again, hopes fizzled when the woman proved not to be Sarah. Tension was palpable by the time they reached their third stop, Chicago. An anonymous tip had mentioned a woman with a mysterious past, working at a shelter for victims of domestic violence. As their car navigated Chicago's busy streets, William felt his heart pound. Something about this lead felt different, more tangible. The shelter was a discreet, unsigned building in a quiet residential area. William and Reeves were greeted by a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a cautious expression. Mrs. Thompson, Reeves asked, showing his identification. We'd like to talk about one of your employees. The shelter director led them to a small office, her gaze shifting warily between William and Reeves. I understand the sensitivity of our residents and staff, she began, but I can't just hand out information. William gently interrupted, pulling a photo of Sarah from his pocket. "Please," he said, his voice quivering slightly. "This is my daughter. She disappeared 7 years ago. We just want to know if she's all right." Mrs. Thompson studied the photo for a long moment, her features softening. I recognize this woman," she finally said. "She worked here for almost a year, about 2 years ago. She called herself Anne, but I always suspected that wasn't her real name." William felt a wave of relief, hope, and anxiety. Where is she now? Did she say anything about where she was going? The director shook her head sadly. She left abruptly, said it wasn't safe to stay, mentioned moving west, but gave no specific details. While William absorbed the information, Reeves pressed for more: exact dates, possible contacts, anything that might help trace Sarah's movements. Leaving the shelter an hour later, William felt a mixture of frustration and renewed resolve. "She was here, Reeves," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "So close, and still running, still afraid." Reeves nodded, already typing furiously on his tablet. "This gives us a new timeline to work with, Mr. Parker, and a general direction. I'll alert our teams to ramp up searches in the western states." Back on the jet, William stared out the window, watching Chicago's lights fade as they gained altitude. His mind filled with images of Sarah, not the carefree young woman who left home 7 years ago, but someone scared, constantly looking over her shoulder, unable to stay in one place. "Mr. Parker," Reeves's voice drew him back to the present. "I've just received an intriguing update. One of our contacts in Los Angeles identified a man matching the description of, well, Emily's possible father." William straightened in his seat, his full attention on the investigator. "What do we know?" "He's an executive at a large international NGO, has significant political connections and a spotless public reputation, but..." Reeves hesitated. "There are backstage rumors, hushed allegations, employees who vanished mysteriously." A knot formed in William's stomach. The thought of Sarah being involved with someone like that. "What's his name?" "Richard Blackwood," Reeves replied, showing a photo of a middle-aged man with a charismatic smile that never reached his cold eyes. William studied the image, feeling a surge of anger and resolve. "Is he looking for Sarah?" Reeves nodded solemnly. "We have reason to believe so." "Which makes our search all the more urgent." William rose, walking to the jet's minibar for a drink. His mind raced, processing all the new information. "Reeves," he finally said, turning to face the investigator, "I want half our resources dedicated to tracking Richard Blackwood's every move. If he's searching for Sarah, he might lead us to her. And the other half, sir, keep searching the western states. Sarah mentioned moving there. Check every small town, every remote community. She's probably looking for somewhere to hide and to go unnoticed." As the jet altered its course, now heading for Los Angeles, William couldn't shake the feeling that they were nearing a critical juncture. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, the picture becoming clearer. Gazing out at the starry sky, William made a silent promise. "I'm coming, Sarah. Just hold on a little longer. I'll bring you home." The night wore on, bringing with it the sense that major revelations, and perhaps great dangers, lay just ahead. William Parker steeled himself for whatever fate had in store, determined not to rest until his family was finally reunited and safe again. The California sun bore down on the asphalt as William Parker's car pulled up in front of an elegant office building in Los Angeles. Beside him, James Reeves checked his tablet one last time. "He's upstairs, Mr. Parker," Reeves reported. "Richard Blackwood, 15th floor. Our contacts confirmed he's alone in the office." William nodded, adjusting his tie. His heart pounded, a mix of anxiety and pent-up anger. After weeks of intense investigation, they were finally face to face with the man who had changed their lives 7 years ago. The elevator ride seemed to crawl. When the doors opened onto the 15th floor, William took a deep breath, steadying himself. Reeves stayed behind, ready to step in if necessary. William knocked on the office door. A deep voice replied, "Come in." Richard Blackwood was exactly like his photo. Tall, handsome, with a smile that never reached his cold eyes. He stood, extending a hand. "Mr. Parker, what a surprise. To what do I owe the pleasure?" William ignored the offered hand, eyes locked on Blackwood's. "You know exactly why I'm here, Mr. Blackwood? Or should I call you the father of my granddaughter?" Blackwood's smile faltered for an instant, but he quickly regained composure. "Pardon me, but I have no idea what you're talking about." "Sarah Parker," William said, his voice trembling slightly. "My daughter. The woman you got pregnant and then abandoned 7 years ago." Blackwood sank into his chair slowly, his face a studied mask of calm. "Mr. Parker, I understand you're upset, but I assure you there's some misunderstanding here." William slammed his hands on the desk, leaning forward. "Enough lies. I know you met her during one of your charity trips. I know that when she got pregnant, you threatened her. And I know you were the one who took the baby to the orphanage." For a long moment, only the ticking clock on the wall broke the tense silence. Then, slowly, Blackwood's facade began to crack. "How?" he started, but William cut him off. "We have proof, Blackwood. Witnesses at the orphanage. Records of your visits. DNA." Blackwood slumped in his chair, running a hand over his face. When he looked at William again, defeat and calculation shone in his eyes. "What do you want, Parker?" he asked, his voice low. "The truth," William replied firmly. "All of it." Blackwood sighed heavily. "Yes, I met Sarah during a trip to Africa. She was different, passionate, idealistic. When we found out she was pregnant, I panicked. My reputation, my career, everything would be ruined." William felt his stomach churn with disgust, but he stayed silent, letting Blackwood continue. I convinced her it was best to keep it secret. Told her I'd take care of everything. When the baby was born, He paused, avoiding William's gaze. "I told Sarah the child didn't survive." William felt fury surge within him. "You lied to her, made my daughter believe her baby was dead." Blackwood nodded miserably. "I took the child to the orphanage, left the locket with her, some twisted attempt to ease my conscience, I suppose." "And Sarah?" William demanded, his voice shaking with emotion. "What happened to her?" "She was devastated," Blackwood admitted. "She wanted to go home, back to you, but I convinced her it was too dangerous, that if you found out I'd be arrested, that the scandal would destroy us all. So she ran, determined to protect everyone." William turned away from the desk, walking to the window. Outside, the city of Los Angeles stretched below, oblivious to the drama unfolding in that office. "Where is she now?" he asked, without turning. Blackwood hesitated. I'm not sure exactly. We lost contact years ago. Last I heard, she was somewhere in Oregon." William spun around suddenly. "Oregon?" At that moment, the office door opened and Reeves rushed in. "Mr. Parker, we have a location. Salem, Oregon. A woman matching Sarah's description was spotted working at a local bookstore." William's heart leapt. Finally, after 7 long years, they were so close. Turning back to Blackwood, William looked at him with a mixture of contempt and pity. "You'll pay for what you've done. Not just to Sarah and Emily, but to every other woman you might have harmed." As William and Reeves prepared to leave, Blackwood called out, "Parker, what happens now?" William paused at the door, glancing over his shoulder. "Now, I'm bringing my daughter home. And you'll face the consequences of your actions." The flight to Salem felt like the longest of William's life. Every minute dragged as his mind whirled with the day's revelations. Sarah, believing her child was dead. Emily, growing up without knowing her true origins. And now the chance to finally reunite his shattered family. When they finally reached the small bookstore in Salem, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the quiet streets. William felt his heart race as he spotted a familiar figure through the window, arranging books on a shelf. Sarah, his Sarah, older, thinner, with a lingering sadness in her eyes, but undeniably his daughter. With trembling hands, William pushed open the store's door, the soft chime overhead announcing his entrance. Sarah turned, a polite smile that quickly turned to shock. "Dad?" she whispered, books slipping from her hands. "Sarah," William replied, his voice thick with emotion. In a few steps, they met in the middle of the store, embracing tightly, tears flowing freely. How did you find me? Sarah asked through sobs. William cupped his daughter's face in his hands, looking into her eyes. Sarah, my dear, there's so much to tell you. But first, you need to know, Emily is alive. Sarah staggered back, confusion and disbelief on her face. What? No, that can't be. They told me. They lied, William said softly. Your daughter is alive. Sarah, she's at home, waiting to meet her mother. As the truth slowly sank in, William saw a spark of hope ignite in Sarah's eyes, a hope absent for 7 long years. Let's go home, he said gently, extending his hand. It's time to bring our family together. Sarah hesitated a moment, years of fear and guilt weighing her down. But then, with a sob of relief, she took her father's hand. Together, father and daughter left the bookstore, ready to begin the next chapter of their lives, a chapter of healing, reconciliation, and at last, a family reunited. William Parker's private jet soared through the night sky, bringing father and daughter home. Sarah sat silently, her eyes red and swollen from crying, while William held her hand firmly. The past few hours had been an emotional roller coaster for them both. What's she like? Sarah asked softly, breaking the silence. Emily, my daughter. William smiled, his eyes shining with affection. She's amazing, Sarah, smart, brave, with a huge heart, so much like you at her age. Sarah closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. All these years, I thought she was dead. How could I have believed that lie? William squeezed her hand. You were deceived, Sarah. It wasn't your fault. What matters is that now we have a chance to fix things. For the rest of the flight, William told Sarah how he had found Emily and the other children, about his investigations and discoveries. Sarah listened in silence, processing the enormity of it all. When the jet landed, Mary was waiting with a car. Her eyes brimmed with tears at the sight of Sarah. Oh, my dear, she whispered, hugging her tightly. On the drive to the mansion, Sarah grew increasingly anxious. What if she hates me? She asked, fear evident in her voice. What if she doesn't want to meet me? William pulled the car up to the estate's entrance. Sarah, look at me, he said gently. Emily is a loving child who spent years dreaming of a family. She'll love you. But remember, it'll be a shock for her too. We need to go slowly. Taking a deep breath, Sarah nodded, mustering the courage to face a moment that would change her life forever. Inside the mansion, Emily and the other children were in the living room, apparently engaged in a board game. But Emily looked distracted, her eyes frequently darting to the window. William entered first, his heart pounding at the sight of the kids. Hello, everyone, he said, trying to keep his voice calm. Emily, sweetheart, could you come here for a minute? There's something very important we need to talk about. Emily got up, curiosity and a hint of apprehension in her eyes. As she approached, William gently guided her toward his study, where Sarah waited, trembling slightly. Emily, William began, kneeling to meet her gaze. Remember when we talked about family and how it can sometimes be complicated? Emily nodded slowly. Well, I've discovered something amazing about your family. Something that will change a lot of things. Emily's eyes widened, flicking between William and Sarah. What is it, Grandpa? William took a deep breath. Emily, this is Sarah. She's your mother. The ensuing silence was deafening. Emily stood rooted to the spot, her eyes locked on Sarah, who took a hesitant step forward. Hi, Emily, Sarah said softly, her voice trembling. I'm sorry it took me so long to find you. Emily blinked rapidly, as though determining if she was dreaming. My mom? She whispered. But I thought... I know, sweetheart, Sarah replied, tears streaming down her face. There was a big misunderstanding. I thought you died when you were born. If I'd known you were alive, I would have moved heaven and earth to find you. Emily took a step back, clearly overwhelmed. William placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. It's all right, Emily. I know it's a lot to take in. You can ask questions. Say whatever you're feeling. The girl looked at William, then back at Sarah. Slowly, She lifted her hand to the locket around her neck. "Is that why you recognize this?" she asked William. William nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. I gave that locket to Sarah when she was young. She left it with you when you were taken to the orphanage." Emily frowned, trying to piece the puzzle together. "But why did you leave me there?" Sarah sobbed, dropping to her knees. "Oh, Emily, I never wanted to leave you. I was deceived by a very bad person. He told me you had died, and I believed him. It was the worst mistake of my life." Hesitant, Emily stepped forward. "So, you do love me?" "More than anything in the world," Sarah answered without hesitation. "From the moment I knew I was pregnant, you were the most precious thing to me. Every day without you was torture." Emily looked to William, who nodded encouragingly. Then, to everyone's surprise, she took off the locket and offered it to Sarah. "I think this belongs to you," Emily said softly. Sarah took the locket, her hands shaking. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, "this was always meant for you, a symbol of my love for you." Carefully, Sarah placed the locket back around Emily's neck. "It belongs to you, my love, a reminder that no matter what happens, you are always loved." At that moment, something seemed to break in Emily. With a sob, she threw herself into Sarah's arms. Mother and daughter clung to each other, years of pain and longing dissolving in that moment of connection. William watched the scene, tears wetting his own face. Mary appeared silently by his side, handing him a handkerchief and smiling through her own tears. After several minutes, Emily pulled back slightly, looking into Sarah's eyes. "Will you stay now?" she asked, a hint of fear in her voice. Sarah nodded emphatically. "Yes, my love. I'm never leaving you again. I promise." William cleared his throat softly. "Actually," he said, "I have a suggestion. How about we all, you, Emily, me, and the other children, move to the countryside house for a while? It's a quiet place for us to reconnect and start this new phase of our lives." Emily looked from Sarah to William, a small smile forming on her lips. "Like a real family." "Exactly like a real family," William confirmed. At that moment, the other children, curious about the commotion, appeared at the study door. William beckoned them in gently. "Kids," he said, "come meet Sarah, Emily's mother." One by one, Michael, Sophia, Olivia, and Daniel approached shyly. Sarah greeted them with a warm smile, thanking them for taking care of Emily. "You're all very special," Sarah said, looking at each of them. "Thank you for being the family Emily needed when I couldn't be here." The rest of the day was filled with conversations, laughter, and a few more tears. Sarah listened to stories about the children's adventures in the mansion, while Emily eagerly absorbed every word about her mother's life. As night fell, William watched Sarah and Emily curled up on the sofa, looking through a photo album. The bond between them, dormant for so long, seemed to bloom more each passing moment. Mary approached William, offering him a cup of tea. "It's incredible, isn't it?" she said softly. "How love can overcome even the most painful separations." William nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "There's still a lot to sort out, Mary, but for the first time in years, I feel we're on the right track." Later, when the children were finally in bed, William found Sarah on the veranda, gazing at the stars. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. Sarah turned, a tired yet happy smile on her face. Overwhelmed, grateful, scared, happy, all at once. William embraced her. "It'll take time, dear, but we're all here for you and Emily. We'll face this together, as a family." Sarah nodded, resting in her father's embrace. "Thank you, Dad, for never giving up, for bringing my daughter, our family, back to me." Under the starlit sky, father and daughter stood there, William finally feeling a peace he hadn't experienced in years. The road ahead would be challenging, with many wounds still to heal and adjustments to be made. But that night, in the Parker mansion, love and hope had triumphed over years of pain and separation. The family, long fragmented, was finally together, and together they would face whatever the future held, stronger and more united than ever. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains of the Parkers' countryside house, illuminating a scene that, Weeks before it would have seemed impossible. In the spacious kitchen, William watched with a smile as Sarah prepared pancakes, assisted by an eager Emily. The other children, Michael, Sophia, Olivia, and Daniel, were busy setting the table, their laughter filling the air. 3 weeks had passed since the emotional reunion between mother and daughter. Moving to the countryside had provided the perfect environment for everyone to begin adjusting to the new family dynamics. "Grandpa," Daniel called, tugging on William's sleeve, "can you help me reach the glasses?" William grinned, lifting the boy so he could grab the glasses from the high shelf. "Here you go, champ." Sarah turned, smiling as she spotted them. Her eyes met William's, gratitude and love evident in her gaze. The last few weeks hadn't been easy. There were tense moments, tears, and difficult conversations. But with each passing day, the bonds among them all grew stronger. After breakfast, William gathered everyone in the living room. "Kids," he began, his voice gentle yet serious, "there's something important I want to discuss with you." The children settled in, their curious eyes fixed on him. "As you know, Emily discovered that Sarah is her mother," William continued, "and that made me think a lot about family and all of your futures." He paused, observing their expressions. Michael, the oldest after Emily, looked tense as though expecting bad news. "I want all of you to know that, to me, you're already part of this family," William said firmly, "and I'd like to make it official, if you want, of course." There was a moment of confused silence before Sophia, the youngest, asked, "What does that mean, Grandpa?" William smiled gently. "It means that if you agree, I would like to legally adopt each of you. You would all become part of the Parker family." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Daniel and Olivia squealed with joy, throwing themselves into William's arms. Sophia began crying quietly, her face glowing with happiness. Michael, usually the most reserved, stood still, tears in his eyes. "So you really want to adopt us?" he asked, his voice quivering slightly. William approached him, placing his hands on the boy's shoulders. "More than anything, Michael, you're already my grandchildren at heart. Now I want you to be legally recognized as well." Michael finally let the tears fall, hugging William tightly. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for giving us a family." Sarah, who had been watching with Emily by her side, joined in, hugging the children. "Welcome officially to the family, my loves," she said, her voice thick with emotion. That afternoon, while the children played in the garden, William found himself in his makeshift office, buried in paperwork. The adoption process would be complex, but he was determined to finalize it as quickly as possible. A gentle knock on the door made him look up. It was Sarah, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you might need this," she said, handing him 1 cup. William smiled gratefully. "Thanks, dear." Sarah sat, eyeing the stacks of documents. "It's a lot, isn't it?" William nodded. "Yes, but it's worth it. These children deserve stability, a permanent home." Sarah fell silent for a moment, fiddling with the locket she now wore, a gift from Emily, who insisted her mother keep it as a symbol of their reconnection. "Dad," she began hesitantly, "I've been thinking it about other children like Emily, like Michael and the others. Children who weren't lucky enough to find us." William leaned forward, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" "I want to help," Sarah said firmly. "Use our influence, our resources to improve conditions in orphanages, to support young mothers in vulnerable situations, so no other woman has to go through what I did." William felt a surge of pride. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Sarah. In fact, I've already been looking into something along those lines." Over the following days, as the adoption process advanced, William and Sarah began working on their new project. They contacted child welfare experts, lawyers, and social workers. Plans were made to renovate orphanages, set up programs for single mothers, and create a network of foster families. One afternoon, while the entire family was gathered in the living room, Emily picked up the locket Sarah wore, examining it thoughtfully. "You know," she said, looking from William to Sarah, "this locket started as a gift from Grandpa to you, Mom. Then it was with me as a reminder of a family I never knew. Now what, sweetheart?" Sarah asked gently. Emily smiled, a smile that lit the entire room. Now it's a symbol of our whole family, of how even when we were apart, we were still connected. William felt tears forming in his eyes. You're absolutely right, Emily. Inspired by his granddaughter's words, William ordered similar lockets for each of the children. When they arrived, weeks later, the family held a small ceremony in the garden. As he placed the lockets around each child's neck, William said, "These lockets are a reminder that no matter what happens, you will always have a family that loves you, that there will always be a place for you here." That night, watching the children sleep peacefully, William reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them all together. From a chance encounter in the woods to a loving, united family, from broken hearts to healed ones, filled with hope. And as he looked to the future, to helping other children and families in need, William knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter of love, healing, and above all, family.